Hi guys and welcome to the Awakened Energy. I'm Skeed. Today, I'm not going to do an energy transmission because, well, not initially, because I have been asked a question and asked a comment about the sort of different styles of people doing this type of energy work. Now, there are sort of two main sort of schools of thought on this. One is that for one school, you have to be sort of slightly more powerful. And that is, when you're more powerful, you can then start controlling the space and the energy around people. Just holding the space and connecting everybody. Shaktipat. And then you have the other school, Pranapat, where facilitators go in and they're doing this over the bodies. And so the first one is fairly simple. You have to have a certain level of power to be able to do it. And everybody will receive the energy they need to receive. And it will work on different areas. The energy is intelligent, so it'll sort of work in a process covering what it needs to do. Then the other one, where you see people doing this over the people, you have astral surgery, which I learned many years ago when I was doing reiki. And then you are where you are connecting in to the person, finding their blockages and helping to slowly release those blockages. And then you also have the same thing where you're connecting empathically to the person, feeling what they need to be healed, what they need to be boosted, and boosting that energy or healing each part, relieving pain, helping people open their third eye, etc., etc. And then you have this other school, which is sort of like the second category, where these people are learning to do activations and facilitation. And I'm not saying anything wrong against these people. They're trying to do their best. But for them, it's all about getting the person to move. The person must move to have an experience. And this is just wrong. And they say, oh, I'm opening their chakras and I'm doing this. But then they're actually not. They're just pushing energy and pushing energy and pushing energy. And I've actually had quite a few comments from people who have worked with other people saying, yeah, I went to a session with this person or that person or this guru, and my energy was just sort of all over the place. It was super, and basically they didn't have a great experience, or they had a great experience, but they just felt that the energy was being pushed around left, right, and center with no reason. This comes from people trying to do this work. As I said, perhaps they're trying to do their best, but it comes from this thing of, oh, the person must move. Oh, the more I push, the better it is. Oh, I'm just following, being guided by the energy. You're not guided by the energy from out there, because that has to be filtered through your perspectives, beliefs, and filters. You have to be guided empathically and intuitively to connect with the person to see what they need. Obviously, this is where I can go into this. I go into this more with private sessions. Group sessions, it's about controlling the space for everybody, and everybody does their thing. When you have group sessions of 15 people and these facilitators are going around, they're actually not necessarily, some obviously will be, but they're not connecting empathically to the person and seeing what they need. They're being guided by what they perceive as the energy, or could also be understood as their own, unfortunately, ego pushing to get these people to move, saying it's coming from the source, but I mean, I've seen people who said, "I've been, and yes, these people were working on my chakras, and they were pushing hard in the chakras," and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's have a look." And their chakras aren't open at all. It's like, how can there be these facilitators that, in theory, are opening these people's chakras, and yet, when I analyze these people, their chakras are fully closed? Well, one of the reasons is, oh, well, I'm spinning this way because each chakra spins this way. Well, that's a big mass thing. The technique you can use with a pendulum to see which way chakras spin, because not everybody's chakras spin in the same direction, and not every chakra spins in the same direction. And then depending how you're orientated, they could spin one way or the other way. And so when these people come in and they're sort of like working on the chakras and pulling, they could actually be forcing other people's chakras to close further rather than open. It is a shame that this happens. It does come from basically a lack of training. Oh, it's activate with the energy. It's I do this. Again, I've met people who do this and have admitted to me they cannot actually feel anything, but they do this stuff on people and there's a reaction, so it must be working. And yes, precisely, it is working. But for a facilitator to not be able to feel the energy, is that safe? Is that ethical? Then I've had conversations with other people that they have this, for example, this idea with the facilitators. Oh, well, the energy is 100% safe and I just follow it and say, no, you can't say it's 100% safe. Just go to my webpage and read my disclaimer. There are possible effects that can happen with this. It's not all light and wonderful and hippy-dippy. We do go through psychological processes which are difficult to deal with the energy, and it awakens things inside us. For example, one of the things that can happen, it can awaken your sexual energy, can bring your levels of sexual desire up, which for some people can be absolutely great. For others, it can actually be quite problematic, because if you are a fairly sexual person anyway, and your sexual arousal goes up even further, that can actually start affecting you day in, day out, sort of like a 15, 16-year-old boy has. But if that's in a 35, 40-year-old female, that can actually be a problem, female or male, because a 40-year-old male won't be used to what a 15-year-old male's used to. And that can cause problems. And obviously, there are things that have to be worked through. I'm not saying they can be avoided. It's something that, the sexual energy gets stimulated, and it's just a process that you have to go through. It comes up and it goes down again. It's just a process. But while there are these people out there that go on these quick 2-3 day courses and say, well, you do this, and that's it, and you follow the sequence every time, with such a powerful energy, it's just not very responsible. And to allow people to practice this when they're clearly saying they can't feel the energy, how responsible is that? And then, of course, there's the other thing. There are people who do this. They connect to the energy, and this is when you know it's Pranapat rather than Shaktipat. First of all, Shaktipat, you don't need to be doing all of this. But I ask, facilitators, okay, has your Kundalini awakened? They're like, I don't know. Or some people say, yes. Okay, so when it opened, describe to me the sensations. Oh, well, I felt a bit hot. That's not a full Kundalini awakening. So there are people moving these energies, and if you want to call it Kundalini activation, but they have not had their Kundalinis awakened. Granted, I've also had clients come to me saying, oh yes, my Kundalini is awakened. And well, obviously I have to take people at their word. Okay, they've got an awakened Kundalini, therefore we will start at a much higher level. And then after the session, they're like, what was that? Well, we were moving the energies because you said your Kundalini was awakened. They're like, but I've never had a sensation like that before. I don't know what was going on in my root chakra. I don't know what was going on in my throat chakra. It's like, your Kundalini has not been awakened if you've never felt anything like that before in a certain chakra. You have to awaken the chakras to awaken the Kundalini. Of course, this is completely understandable because in social media, there are so many people trying to explain what Kundalini awakening is and people dumbing it down, and obviously people are using these videos for educational purposes and therefore they interpret that as they've had a full Kundalini awakening when, okay, they might have had a little spark of it, but that's it. I've sort of lost track of what I say. But so with facilitation of this energy, as I said, there are the 2 or 3 ways to do it. There's the controlling the space, there's the feeling the empathic connection through the person, and then there's this irresponsible thing of now for me with clients, if I'm doing an empathic connection, for example, sensations that I can feel. For example, if a female is in a certain area of their menstrual cycle, I might suddenly feel like pains where obviously I don't have ovaries, but I might feel sharp pains where ovaries would be in them. So I know perhaps where they are in their cycle, or perhaps they have something affecting them there in that area, etc., etc. I might get a pain in my shoulder, or I might feel a heaviness in my shoulder. Therefore, I know there's something there in the shoulder. That's an empathic connection. It's not, oh, well, it's this routine. And do you see what I'm talking about? And then people that can really control this. We've all seen The Last Airbender, the blood bending. Again, from powerful people who do this, responsible people. For example, there are some that, talking about female menstrual cycles, that they might start to finish their cycle as, I like to say here, they suddenly go into Shark Week, which, okay, we all know with these energies, with female clients, you have to warn them if they're on the pill, be a little bit careful, it might stop working for a while, blah, blah, blah. But then these females might start to flow, and it might be very heavy, and it might go on for more than a week, it might go on for 2 weeks, etc. I actually had one person that I had to cut their cycle because they'd been bleeding heavily for 2 weeks. So I had to come in and sort of do the reverse blood bend and to cut it. And so obviously after the session, then it stopped. So there are these things we have to be aware of, but also as clients and patients, you have to be aware of these things, that if they happen to you, then you have to actually go back and tell the person. So, for example, talking about female menstrual cycles, that happens. It's been going on for 10 days, 2 weeks. That never happens to you. Go and tell them. Hopefully, they will be able to sort it out for you. If they can't, well, you need to start finding someone else to work with. What can I say? So just be a little bit careful. And if you go to a facilitation where they are moving your energy all over the place, and it doesn't feel comfortable, or it just feels strange, okay, you're going for an experience and it's a rush and it's a roller coaster, and okay, but that's not what Kundalini activation is about. I mean, if you want to go for that, go for that. But if you actually want growth in your energy, if people are doing that to you, you might want to start looking elsewhere and doing it with other people who will connect with your energy empathically through intuition, help you balance the yin and the yang, the tantric, the male and the female poles, in balance connection, help you in a controlled way release the emotions, the negative ones, release the blockages, and then go into happy states, etc. This said, I also have to say, I'm not trying to say the majority of people don't know what they're doing. It does seem, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are doing this and haven't done enough study. They're not intuitive or empathic enough, and perhaps need to work on themselves more before they continue. Which is another thing I've also found. There are people who do facilitation who actually do no self-work. To be a facilitator, you have to be constantly working on yourself, constantly releasing, constantly finding the shadows, constantly peeling back the layers. So, just be aware that unfortunately these things go on. It comes from not the people doing it, but it comes from the people who gave the trainings. It's up to them to be responsible, to perhaps not certify a person. Obviously, just because they don't certify them isn't going to stop them going out and doing it if they've actually got to a point where they can do it. And so you just have to be a little bit careful. And if you have experiences like that, that'll be the last time you go with them until you find someone, try someone else, until you find someone that can control it for you and go at your own pace. Now, of course, you do have very similar to the Chi Masters. It is a slightly different philosophy where you come in and basically you have a power zap. And it's like bazinga. And I mean, you literally, these people will sort of, if they're standing up, they'll collapse on the floor or they'll start blah, 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 blah. And so the Chi Masters say, well, that's like having, 3 years of meditation in one go on an energetic level. Okay, great. If you're into that, then go find a Chi Master that does that. However, obviously understand that, just think about it. Is it better to do it like that, or is it better to let the energies do their thing rather than basically stick your fingers in a power socket? I mean, who does that? Anyway, thank you for those who are still watching. This is a video for people who do this, facilitators, as much as for people that receive it. Hope it's been useful, and remember to subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Have you had, this is very, very important. Have you had an experience like this that you feel that your energy was moved uncontrollably or by someone, put it in the comments down below, just so we can see how many people have had experiences like that. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in another video. Namaste.